let's get into this to this very heavy, very cool pedal board.
The Behemoth, yeah.
Yeah, take me from boot to bonnet.
The Behemoth. I mean, literally the first pedal in the chain is the wah pedal. It's just a standard Dunlop kind of crybaby wah pedal.
Running on batteries?
Running on batteries, yeah. I guess I could kind of, I don't know, rig something up with a bit of power coming from the board, but I've yet to have a battery go down on me.
Right,
So,
they last for years.
Yeah, I mean, tonight's the night now, of course,
Yeah.
I said that. So, but
Right.
yeah, to be honest, it's not that I don't like wah pedals so much as I don't trust myself with wah pedals. That's a John Mayer song, isn't it? Just, if it's there, I'll stand on it and it'll just turn into a kind of wah fest. So having specific moments in the set which I'll reserve for wah pedals kind of keeps me in line, you know. So there's a track called Jump In, for which the riff is wah pedal with a load of reverb. Sounds
Let's hear that.
Sounds like this. Apologies for the hum. More of a kind of filter thing than it is a wah pedal. I mean, it's still identifiably wah pedal, I guess, but it's not like it's waka waka waka.
Yeah.
Which is, what it would turn into if I didn't kind of keep myself on the straight and narrow. So
Yeah, it takes a lot of discipline not to
Totally.
not to go to that.
Totally. It's a little bit tempting. So the next pedal in the chain then, Plug is actually my own signature pedal. It's an electric Lightning made by Thorpe Effects in the UK. It's only been out, I guess, a couple of weeks at this point. But
congratulations.
Yeah,
cool.
thank you. Yeah, it's been a long time in the making. I guess it was probably the better part of 2 years that we were kind of prototyping and going back and forth various ideas. It's a valve pedal. It's a valve overdrive and boost. So I guess a little bit unusual in that respect, but it's cool. It's quite aggressive. It's kind of fairly typically Marshall, I guess, you know, in its EQ layout and in its sound. So it's any kind of more aggressive moments of the set where you need that kind of visceral kind of overdrive and not an overdrive with all the edges rounding off and sweet and lovely. That's where the electric comes
I got to hear this. I got to hear it.
Yeah,
It's ugly glory.
Yeah. It's like me, really. Modeled after myself.
That's great. I would never turn that off. It sounds
it's cool. It's, I mean, all of the usual cliches, I guess. It's amp-like, it's very dynamic. How much of that is just because of the topology of the pedal, or the design is particularly responsive? How much is because there's a valve or a tube in it? I don't know, but it's a gorgeous sounding pedal. This lovely sounding boost side of it as well, which is
okay. So that's what the right side is.
Work independently or kind of combined.
Perfect.
So it's cool. The boost side is absolutely one of those I don't want to turn that off kind of thing. It's like a sweetener, you know. It just fattens everything out. This a lovely kind of low end thump with it, but it kind of does something particularly sparkly and sweets to the high end as well. So the boost side is a little bit more-ish. So should we try that a minute?
Yeah, by all means.
Make sure it's set kind of accordingly. So.
Love it.
It's nice. I've yet to find an amp that it doesn't improve in some respect, which is cool. It's
man, particularly for a backline gig, how nice you can carry your tone with you.
I think that was kind of part of its design process. Was Adrian was keen to make it as versatile as possible and fairly flexible in that respect. In whatever you were faced with, whatever you find when you turn up at a venue, that's there as a little bit of a kind of sort you out kind of pedal.
Yeah. Yeah, and I don't know, man. I don't know if it's the tube that does it, but wow.
Who knows?
It just sounds great. Okay, that's an excellent start. So where are we going from there?
Out of there, we are going into the 29 pedals Una, which is a buffer, and that's about as much as I understand about that.
Yeah, that's all I got.
Yeah.
It buffs.
It does, and it buffs well.
Okay.
It's buffers are a little bit of a kind of alien technology to me, to be honest. But it just kind of seemed to improve things when it was in the kind of line. You know, there's not, thanks to the G3, the Gig Rig G3, there's not actually a tremendous amount of pedals in line as such. You know, obviously, I kind of saves the tap dancing as much as anything else, but they all run through the switcher, which saves the kind of, or preserves the signal, I guess, ultimately. But sticking that in the chain did undoubtedly improve things. Obviously, it has a foot switch. It's not as though you particularly want it on and off, but it does have a fuzz in the loop. So underneath the hood, we have a Mythos Golden Fleece, the blackout version, which kind of, that basically operates the fuzz pedal. You know, momentarily removes the 29 pedals Una from the signal chain, because obviously fuzz pedals typically don't like buffers.
Yeah.
So if you kick that in, it turns on the fuzz. So
so automatically when you hit that one, it
turns on the fuzz. What I particularly like about it is it's right next to the foot switch for a really dramatic tremolo, which, when you're as clumsy as I am, you can guarantee that you'll get trem instead of fuzz at a particularly climactic moment of a solo. But I don't know, it keeps me on my toes. So to be honest, especially running kind of like Fendery clean amps, I tend not to use the fuzz in isolation. It's a little bit kind of, you know, kind of ice picky, serrated edge, kind of aggressive. But stack it with an overdrive pedal, and it kind of, I guess it simulates you running it into a more overdriven amp. You know, it's the kind of more typically Hendrix, Eric Johnson-y kind of thing. You know, so we're kicking the fuzz.
Love it.
Just about in tune.
Yeah, that was great. I'm not normally a fuzz guy, but God, that's dialed in.
So that was it actually stacked with another Mythos pedal, actually. That was it stacked with the Molnir, or the Molnir. Every time I say it, I get grief. Which again is hidden under the hood. So it's...
what's the...
Klon-esque, Klon-inspired, so it's that kind of, you know, typical Klon mid-range, I guess, which then, in due course, fattens out the fuzz. So the combination of the two of them works particularly nicely. So, it's just, fuzz pedals sound great, but not necessarily within the context of the band setup, I guess. You know, it's a little bit overwhelming if it's in isolation.
Yes. Okay. So after that, where are we now?
Then we're running into the G3, the Gig Rig G3, which obviously saves me kind of Michael Flatley-ing my way around the stage too much. So pretty much everything then, to a point anyway. Actually, I tell a lie, we missed one. We missed the A-Lane drive, actually. Again, a Mythos pedal. It's kind of transistory, kind of quite aggressive sounding overdrive, which is something I've kind of started to lean towards in recent years. For the longest time, it was, you know, the more edges it rounded off, the better, because the better it made me sound. But kind of the more I've grown up, I think I'm starting to kind of veer into the warts and all category of overdrive. So if we kick on the A-Lane drive for a second.
It's
cool. You know, it's subtle, but there's a kind of hairy top end on it. You know?
That's
again,
great.
like myself.
Yeah, right. Okay, from there.
Out of the A-Lane drive into the G3, the Gig Rig G3. Like I said, kind of saves me sort of tap dancing too much. So you've got a fair amount of pedals in there, a fair amount of gain pedals as well. The band joke and call the board the 50 Shades of Gain. And it's not far off, if I'm honest. So the first pedal is labeled Breaker. It's essentially a Marshall Blues breaker, but it's made by Snouse Electric Company out of Denver, Colorado, I do believe. So it's essentially a Marshall Blues breaker, and it's set fairly subtly.
That's great.
Not too drastic in isolation. That gets stacked a lot with the Mjolnir, the Mjolnir, however you say it. So we kick those two in together. Quite a nice, aggressive, bitey kind of mid-pushed kind of combination.
Yeah.
So that's part of the core rhythm sound of the kind of set, I guess.
Right. Right. I mean, you know, and that's the thing about all these shades of dirt.
Yeah.
You really need them because it's like, to me, I rarely want clean.
Yeah, that's exactly it, and it gives you a little bit of flexibility then if, you know, things change from venue to venue. Amp to amp, you know, like I said, this is the first time I've ever seen these amplifiers before. It's relatively similar to what I use at home, but
yeah.
You know, I mean, a deluxe reverb is not particularly comparable to a super reverb, you know.
No.
So
they're distant cousins.
Distant cousins, at best, I think.
Yeah.
So it kind of, it gives you that flexibility, and it gives you a little bit of versatility should you need it. But as much as anything else, it just gives me something to play with. You know, I'm a big fan of pedals. I'm a big fan of playing around with boards and just kind of getting far too involved in these things, you know.
Yeah, oh yeah.
It's a rabbit hole, and one I'm down head first at this point. So.
Yeah, I get it, man. Okay, so what after that?
So the one we glossed over momentarily then, labelled as small on the G3, is the small speaker overdrive. Again, kind of referencing those kind of grittier, kind of more aggressive sounding overdrive pedals. That's a good example. It's a small speaker overdrive made by Great Eastern Effects, I do believe. East here being relative to Cambridgeshire in the UK, I do believe. So yeah, it's great. It's one of my favourite pedals in the last couple of years, and sounds like this. I think the idea of it was that it was kind of meant to emulate like an old tweed champ at the the kind of point of exploding, I guess. And if you kind of crank it, it does that particularly well. But it's a great sounding pedal.
Yeah, love that tone. Okay, what do we got next?
More gain pedals, unsurprisingly.
Good, great.
KOT, fairly self-explanatory. It's the king of tone. That still, to be honest, kind of comprises the bulk of the set, I guess. It's one of my favourites overdrive pedals of all time. I feel a little bit of a cliche for saying that. Obviously the wait list these days is obscene, whatever it is. I bought it, kind of on the waiting list. I waited, I think, a year maybe.
Wow.
Which at the time felt like an eternity, but relative to now, I'd probably be retired by the time I get one, I think. But it was very much worth the wait. I wouldn't be, kind of going out of my way to pay whatever reverb prices are these days, but it's a great pedal, and it's just, as I said, it's the rhythm for most of the set, to be honest. So. Does the job,
Yeah, don't you find though, like having all those options on different nights, one might just be perfect, and the next night
Absolutely.
it's totally wrong.
Absolutely. Like I said, it varies from venue to venue, size of venue.
Yeah.
Typically, I find the older I get, the less gain I play with. I think we've all been guilty of, just kind of needlessly gaining it up on occasion,
yeah.
But I think it's a restraint thing. It's a kind of bearing in mind what else is happening on the stage. Obviously, Cardinal Black is a pretty kind of involved setup, I guess. We've got keys going on. There's quite a few elements, and knowing your place and knowing how to kind of sit in your place as well is crucial. So
Sure.
yeah. Next up, we have the Cali 76. I imagine that's going to be horrendously noisy today.
Oh, good. I want to hear it.
Exactly.
I want to hear this. I want to hear that 60 cycle while I'm just really
taking
really
everyone's
come
head
to
off.
life. Yeah.
So there's a track in the set called On My Own, which is kind of more of an ambient kind of guitar thing, I guess. And there's a riff in that, which involves the Cali 76. So if we kick that on, and the big old cavernous delay on the golden reverberator, and a little bit of overdrive, we get... Enough reverb to take down a horse.
Yeah, and that's the University Audio Golden.
Yes, so that's that big kind of cavernous reverb there. It was funny, it's endless discussions with our front of house engineer as to how much is too much reverb. I think that's probably too much, to be honest, for this size of venue. You can kind of get away with different amounts, in different rooms. But
well, I loved it, just like that.
There we go.
I think you could even add more.
I'll send them in your direction when our front of house is complaining. I'll send them in your direction.
John said it's cool.
John said it's fine.
Yeah.
Don't fight him. He's bigger than me.
Okay.
So, Cali 76, the boost for the solo is the Keeley Katana. Literally just makes me louder. The tremolo, again hidden underneath, is the Moore Trelicopter. Dangerously, perilously close to the to the fuzz foot switch. But that's for the start, Tell Me How It Feels, one of our tracks, which has a kind of really dramatic kind of like... very Tom Morello kind of thing. It does that one function and it does it very well. So,
and because it's hidden underneath there's no changing
absolutely
on the gig. It is what it is.
It's marked as the kind of what speed that needs to be at, just in case. But as of yet, it's kind of never moved, which is cool.
You won't change it until the next album.
No, exactly. Yeah. You don't need to get a second one.
Right.
One of the most used pedals on the board actually is the next one. It's the Echo Rack. So labelled. It's the Catlin Bred Echo Rack. I bought that from Pro Guitar Shop years ago. I got stung with import tax, I remember that much. But I remember Andy's demo went live the day it was released. I must have honestly been one of the first people that ever bought that, because I'd been waiting for something which was kind of Echo Rack inspired. Saw the video pop up, listened to it, thought that's for me, I'll buy that. Literally about 20 minutes after it was announced, But it's never missed a beat. It's a phenomenal sounding pedal. And of all of the Echo Rack style pedals that I've had over the years, that's the one that's kind of been immovable, So it's a cool sounding pedal. What it does particularly nicely is it can be fairly obnoxiously loud, and kind of the repeats can be fairly prominent if you need them to be. But if you play more dynamically, it turns into a kind of a reverb-esque kind of thing. It's a nice combination, So if we kick that on. It's cool.
I love it.
Fairly ambient, I guess, but I guess the part of being the only guitar player in the band is you kind of have a little bit of your own space to kind of fill, So when the quieter moments, it's nice to kind of use that almost as a synth pad, I guess. You can get kind of fairly creative with it.
I was wondering that when you were playing, because I've as I said, I've watched a ton of your stuff online.
Oh, thank you, man.
And you do all this kind of ambient trippy things. I'm wondering, do you get to work that into the context
Oh,
of a
totally.
rock and band?
That's where it's come from, honestly. I guess it's not so much an isolated guitar thing, so much as working that within the context of the band, like you said, and that's where that's come from. That's where that's derived from, and that's a huge part of that. In conjunction with reverbs and trems and some more crazy stuff, it's the starting point of that cooler, weirder ambient stuff.
And it takes a really dynamic band that listens and watches, because some of that subtlety would be if you're with a basher. I
mean, if I find a subtle dynamic band, I'll let you know. But, I joke, they're great. We're all kind of fairly conscious of what's going on around us. So it's nice to have that freedom to be able to do that and know that when you kind of roll it back, the band is going to follow you, and when you take off, they'll follow you again. So it's good fun.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. What's
onwards
next?
And upwards?
What else is hiding in here?
Oh man, there's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of talent enhancers. So next we have the HX Stomp XL from line 6. The harmonic tremolo you just heard on that last clip, that was from the HX Stomp. We've got the big cavernous delay that you heard earlier on the track with the wah pedal. We've got a slapback delay. Oh, we've got loads of delay on actually. Where's that coming from? That's the boss. Sorry. Got a slapback.
There we go.
Got a slightly longer delay. We've got a freeze kind of effect as well, undoubtedly derived from the Electro-Harmonix freeze, which is quite cool. So you get that kind of like. Again, it's synth paddy kind of
cool.
thing.
You know, although you like your style, you do all these kind of low droney things anyway, which is such a cool effect.
It's nice to work that into the context of the band as well. There's a couple of kind of more broken down verses in some songs where I'll set that go in as a little bit of a drone, and then it's just again being conscious of when you actually hit that button will dictate the volume of which it's set at. You know, if you hit a big old E chord and whack it on first, you're going to drown out everyone in the band. So it's quite a dynamic effect in that respect, I guess. But so the HX Stomp covers some of the kind of more weird stuff. There's a chorus for one track. It's great for almost kind of momentary effects. Like I've got a Thorpe Effects Deep Organ at home, which is an amazing sounding chorus pedal. It's kind of Thorpe size, so it's a fairly sizable pedal, which I would love to have on the board, but then that would take the place of something like the HX Stomp, which also does the trem, does the reverbs, does the delays, So that's a little bit of a utility pedal, but it's helpful when all of the effects it does happens to do incredibly well.
That's part of the compromise, right?
Yeah,
space
totally.
And
space and weight. Again, it's a heavy old beast, this pedal board. But lastly, then moving on, we've got Starlight as well. Again by UA. That's specifically for a track on our next record, which we're not playing live at the moment, as of yet. So I've no idea what the settings are on that as of now. But lastly, we've got the Boss RE202 Space Echo, which I love. It's again one of those pedals that's you kind of loath to turn off. It's got multiple delays kind of saved in it. The first of which is for the first track of the set, very much kind of rhythmically set to that song. So that's baked in to the actual tempo of the song.
Oh, okay.
It's helpful.
So are you using like a MIDI thing? With
no, just basically tapped it out on the record, and it's good as well because it kind of makes sure that at least in one point in time that was the first track of the set. So again, you're walking on hopefully to a kind of busy venue. You get the kind of adrenaline pumping through. You want to play everything 3 times as quick. So having something like that, which at the very least kind of grounds you and pulls you in and reins you in, kind of keeps your adrenaline levels in check, is helpful. But that's nice, just to kind of have as a bit of an ambient kind of. that in conjunction with some reverbs and delays and all the kind of other crazy stuff is a really nice effect. And what it does, which I love even more because it annoys everyone else in the band, is this.
Oh, yeah.
Which again, you have to pick your moments for that. 'Cause it,
You only get to do that 8 times a night.
Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
it.
Yeah,
Just
absolutely.
8.
No more, no less, crucially. But yeah, pick the people stood in the front row because that will relieve them of their eyebrows.
Right.
So
yeah, I bet in full flight
oh,
that
man.
is a
It's,
jet taking off.
It's funny. We had on this run, we basically couldn't afford to bring our front of house with us because crew visas are pretty expensive. So we're kind of, I was going to say at the mercy. That sounds more derogatory than I intended to be because they've all been amazing so far. But obviously, kind of, it's varying every night from venue to venue. But one of the front of house engineers in Omaha the other day picked up on the fact that I'm not actually that loud on stage. I spent 12 years playing in a covers band,
Yeah.
you know, playing weddings, playing funerals, playing bar mitzvahs. We'd celebrate any religion for the right price.
Right.
So I've done so many shows, you know, where you barely had a PA system. So I've kind of learned to mix myself on stage and be very conscious of if I'm too loud or if I'm too quiet. And again, with effects, you know, it's live mixing to a degree. It's knowing how wet you need to be, then listening back to clips. I film most of the shows that we do routinely, not because I'm a narcissist and want to sit in the back of the van on the next show watching myself, but it's just interesting to watch back to see how things work in context. And
Totally.
you know, even if it's like self-improvement, you know, you watch something back that at the moment you were doing it felt disastrous or felt terrible. In the cold light of day, it might be worse, or it might be not as bad as you thought it was. You know,
Isn't that shocking, the surprises?
Oh, absolutely. Things that, you know, often feel terrible in the moment are kind of passable, you know, at worst. So, but it's the same with effects. It's the same with sounds. It's the same with volume. Just watching stuff back, you know, it's you know, that's always my kind of top bit of advice for anyone who asks me for any. Why anyone would ask me for any ideas is beyond me. But if they do, it's just film yourself, film shows. You know, watch them back and see what you're doing well, see what you're not doing so well. So, in my case, it's a lot that I'm not doing well, but it's helpful just to learn, you know.
Yeah.